Hey everyone. I wanted to talk today about ways of navigating the world, really, that don't rely on the constructs of mind, because the mind is completely unreliable. It's it's a learned experience, a learned program, a learned idea of self, a learned idea of other people, a learned idea of concepts like money and success and work and business and health. And when we try and navigate within that learned conceptual space, all that's happening is that the program that we've learned, that the mind has learned, is being continually reinforced, because everything is being perceived through that program. So the evidence, like, it filters out anything that doesn't agree with it. So the evidence is just reinforcing the beliefs. And then the behavior comes directly from that belief structure. And that becomes our navigation. We're looking out through this grossly distorted lens, a complete distortion of what we think we are, of what the world is. And through that distortion, we're trying to do the right thing, trying to stay safe, try to be loved, try to be worthy, try to be right. Through that distortion is totally unreliable. And so what's the navigation instead? I think that's a really interesting question, because we're not passive either. Like, the human system doesn't just turn into a blob on the floor. There's a dynamic movement to it. And how does that orientate when the mind is not the reliable space that we used to think it was? Well, there's two things that I think are really interesting in this respect. And they come really from the idea of the human system as a tube. It sounds a bit ridiculous, but it's a pet name that we use often on our programs, that the tube, because really it is a tube. It is a tube, like in the way that, like, an amoeba's a tube or an earthworm's a tube, where we are a space for input and a space for output in every sense, really. And that word tube, I think, is really helpful in understanding how this human system can flourish, that doesn't depend on the insecurities and belief structure of the mind. Instead, it looks at the physical, biological, energetic, mechanical reality of the human system. And in the sense of a tube, one of the ways of flourishing is to match input and output. And the second way then is this balance, is finding this balance between these different elements of life, so that the system finds its stasis within the parameters in which it really thrives. And I think this idea is so rich. So in terms of input and output, in terms of this flow, we know when we eat too much and we feel congested and stagnant and heavy and stuck. We know it. Our digestive system is is clogged up. There's no flow happening there. And we're equally, when we eat too little, when there isn't enough coming in, we're too light. We're insubstantial. We're lightheaded and depleted, and so there isn't that balance of input and output. Same with inhaling, exhaling. We need that balance of oxygen coming in, and then equally we need the output. We need the carbon dioxide to leave the body. It has to be that flow, that system, because we are an energetic system. We're constantly in flow. And it's interesting to reflect that it's only the mind that would have anything as a fixed thing. Nothing is fixed, but the mind fixes stuff. That's, in a way, that's its job. It says, I'm like this, they're like that, tomorrow's going to be like this, yesterday was like that. Fixes, bam, and then that's there as a concrete reality, except that concrete reality is only a mental image, a mental construction. So nothing is fixed. Everything is in flow. And the same is true of our own mental flow. So the input of content needs to be matched with the output. And we probably all have experience of this, where we've been watching a lot of television or reading a lot or taking a lot in, or we've been in meetings all day and taking it all in. And we sort of feel like we're going to pop with all this stuff. It's like stagnant and overloading within us, because it hasn't converted itself, and through the alchemy of the system, in the same way that the alchemy of the system converts the inhale into the exhale, or the food into the excretion. It's the same thing, that there needs to be a conversion, an input, a conversion, and an output. That's how we're made. And same when we're giving a lot, we're doing a lot, we're creating, we're writing a lot, or we're speaking all the time, out. If it's not matched by an equal input, there's a depletion, an emptiness. It becomes thin, dry. It loses its richness. It's lost its juice. It's not being replenished. It's not being nourished, that output. And these seem to me to be very practical, consistent, useful navigations for our system, in which we can flourish, to have the input match the output, to have the system in flow, to release the obstacles, release the blockages that either prevent the input or prevent the output. Because we are a system of energetic flow. That's all we are. And the more the mind settles into that reality and stops losing itself in these fixed creations that it has, then the mind too can come back into that space of flow, back into that presence, that ongoing movement of intelligence, really. The ongoing dynamic momentum of life in action. So cool. It's what we are. And to see that, I think is helpful in terms of understanding why sometimes we feel stagnant and stuck, or sometimes why we feel depleted or spread too thin. We this isn't about denial of our flourishing system. This is how our system flourishes. Yeah. And that is the core aspect of it, our flow and our balance. Mm. So thank you. Lots of love. Bye.